Hey folks, Charlie in Westeros here, coming at you at long last after finishing my final exam for the year, which is why I wasn't able to get this video out sooner. But I am here because, just like many of you, I had to share my thoughts on the infamous upcoming Battle of Winterfell. In short, this video will mostly focus on predictions, but I will try to tie things in with some events from episode 2 of season 8. Inevitably, there are many characters I have some hesitation or doubts with respect to their fates next episode, but I will present a relatively firm stance nonetheless as to who I think makes it out alive and who doesn't. I will first start by discussing those characters I am convinced will die, to those who I think will likely perish, towards those I don't think will die, before finally discussing the characters that I am almost positive will survive the Battle of Winterfell. To start off my must-die list, I think the most significant character on it would be Beric Dondarrion. For those of you who have also read the books, you are certainly aware that Beric's story ended a long time ago, and he's sort of just been floating around in the TV series without really too much of a purpose. As a result, I think I can firmly say that he is kaput. The second character that I think isn't making it out of Winterfell alive, however, might be a little more surprising to some of you, and that is Varys. By this point, it shouldn't come to most of you as a surprise that there is a theory regarding the Night's King reviving the dead within the Crypts of Winterfell, thereby attacking and potentially killing off much of the civilian population in hiding down there. Recall the conversation between Varys and Melisandre in Season 7 on Dragonstone.
I have to die in this strange country. Just like you.
Certainly Westeros is foreign to Varys, considering he is from the Free Cities. However, he has lived a long time in King's Landing already. One place that is foreign to Varys, though, is the North. And how prophetic would it be for Varys, the Spider, to be killed in the crypts of a strange foreign land to the north of King's Landing, the true place he spent much of his life. There are certainly a few more characters who are meant to be killed off in the crypts, including the little girl Sir Davos told to protect the people there in episode 2 of this season. Out of all the characters I'm positive will die, Grey Worm is the one that saddens me the most, based off of the sweet interaction between him and Missandei last episode, of going to Noth together. I'm almost positive that if Grey Worm isn't the one to die, it will be Missandei. We've had this intense setup revolving around their relationship, so it is quite clearly foreshadowed to end on a tragic note this Sunday. However, I think the best theoretical option is that they both perish. At least that way they don't have to live without the other, so to speak. Because I am convinced Grey Worm is dying. Now for the most likely will die list. The first character I would like to discuss in this category is Theon Greyjoy. Following the conclusion of episode 2, many people have discussed the notion that many or most character arcs are now complete, and so there isn't a reason to keep them around or alive anymore. While I don't disagree with that notion, I do feel like it has been used fairly liberally to describe most, if almost all, characters in the series. However, one character whose storyline truly is quite complete is Theon Greyjoy's. He said his goodbye to his sister, he's been welcomed back with open arms by his Stark siblings, and he's sworn to fight for them, especially Bran, during the assault by the White Walkers. He, in short, has truly and completely fulfilled his storyline for the series. The only slight hesitation I might have as far as he's concerned could be due to a theory I made a few years ago, basically stating that cripples, bastards, and broken things would rule Westeros. And I also did make a prediction that Theon would help evacuate Winterfell through the aid of ships from the Ironborn. However, I am starting to think that isn't so much his fate anymore, and that his life will tragically end protecting Bran. As such, Theon is the character I think is most likely to die among those on my most likely list. The next character I would like to address is Jorah Mormont. Jorah is another character whose arc seems to have come full circle. As was demonstrated by last episode, he seems to be just sort of floating around. There does, however, seem to be some tension towards him from his cousin, Lyanna Mormont. It is possible that she still resents the fact that he was caught poaching and left for exile, as well as perhaps because he chose to serve Daenerys. However, my personal hopes for him is that he is able to reconcile himself with his only remaining family member. Since Lyanna wants to fight the battle, to me the best way for the reconciliation to occur is if he were to die, sacrificing himself in order to protect the young Mormont, so that she may live. Now Bran. With Bran we are starting to enter more uncertain territory, but I do think the fates are slightly against him. We've been told during the last episode that the Night's King is particularly drawn to Bran and wishes to kill him. Coupled with that fact, we know that Tyrion asked Bran to tell him about his quest in life with the Three-Eyed Raven. As such, any relevant information Bran possessed could logically now be in Tyrion's hands or mind. Moreover, I think the outcome of the Battle of Winterfell will be meant to instill a sense of hopelessness. The best way this could come about is if the one person with the potential ability to discover how to kill the Night's King is offed by the creature. We also know that Bran has no knowledge as to how the war will end, nor do I think he is likely to. Nevertheless, there is still a significant chance he could survive, especially if the survivors of Winterfell make their way for the God's Eye just south of Harrenhal, on the Isle of Faces, where the children and the First Men signed the first peace between the two races, but that whole spiel is better left for another video. My next thoughts involve Podrick Payne. While I am leaning towards death for Pod, I really don't have much to back up his fate either way. Out of most of the remaining characters, Pod is the one who has the least amount of backstory to make a strong conclusion either way. The fact that he is relatively secondary renders him somewhat disposable, but at the same time, it's all the more reason why it would be wonderful to discover more about Pod. Regardless, I think he might die tragically, fighting side by side with his knight mentor, Brienne of Tarth. In a way, I put the likes of Tormund and Dolorous Head in this category as well, simply because there isn't much of a necessity for those characters in the final episodes. At most, I think it would be ironic for the last leader of the Night's Watch to die fighting side by side with the last leader of the Wildlings. That's really the only thing I can think of as far as it comes to them. The last character, or group of characters who I think have a chance of dying at Winterfell, or at least in the aftermath of the battle, are the remaining direwolves, Ghost and Nymeria. The reason I say after the battle is based on my belief that the White Walkers will win this battle. However, the remaining forces and survivors of Winterfell would need a way to escape. This is where I think the direwolves enter the fray. I believe Nymeria will show up with her pack of wolves and provide Arya and the remaining forces time to escape, similarly to the way Summer sacrificed himself to let Bran and Meera escape from the White Walkers' attack at the Weirwood Tree north of the Wall. Ghost would also join the wolves in protecting the humans. As such, I think this could be the moment the direwolves perish. Now, the reason why I hesitate to fully commit to this theory is because I could also see the direwolves showing up in the last stand of humans against the White Walkers, somewhere in the south, most likely Harrenhal. And so their sacrifice could theoretically come about at a later episode. Regardless, one thing I am absolutely convinced of is that the direwolves are showing up at some point and they will be fighting the White Walkers to help or protect the humans. Now for my most likely will not die list. The first person on this list I want to address is Jaime Lannister. Now, I realize many think Jaime or Tyrion or both Lannisters will meet their end at Winterfell. However, I am doubtful that one of the two will perish, and I am completely positive that at least one of them survives. Jaime's survivability, however, is due to a role I believe he has yet to play as far as it comes to Cersei. Whether he or Arya is the one to end Cersei's life, I think he will at least meet with his sister a final time before the end, and so I don't expect him to die at Winterfell. Brienne. My reasoning for Brienne survives is as follows. I realize many people have mentioned her story arc is now complete. However, there's one reason I think she might still endure, and that is due to her connection with her apparent ancestor in Sir Duncan the Tall. For those of you who have read the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms prequel series, of which Episode 2 is also named, you know that Sir Duncan the Tall would eventually become Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. And while Brienne finally got the chance to be knighted, I think her true destiny is to become the first female Lord Commander of the Kingsguard to serve whoever ends up winning the Iron Throne, or whatever remains of Westeros. Personally, I think it would make sense if she were to serve under Sansa, but I don't discount the possibility that she could also serve under Jon or Dany should any of them rule. Gendry. Gendry is a little bit of an anomaly because I normally would have been a bit more secure in saying he survives before last episode, but I'm going to go on a limb and say he endures. I'll keep his arc brief, but I think he is essential in one day ruling Storm's End. Granted, I think his death would be a huge loss for humanity, considering he seems to be one of the only people who might be able to potentially work Dragonglass, but I could also be making the mistake of superimposing his role in the TV series with his role in the books. Gilly, Sam, and Little Sam are also characters I am a little worried for, but I'm going to assume survive. Little Sam in particular is another character I think the Night's King wants to obtain, considering he was meant to be a sacrifice by Craster, yet managed to escape his doom thanks to Sam. Certainly this is one person, other than Bran, that the Night's King would want to reach. Naturally, being in the Crypts of Winterfell, Gilly is also at risk of being attacked by the undead, but with Sam the Slayer with her down there, I think he will successfully protect her. My hunch is Sam will also have a role to play in the future of Westeros, perhaps as a Grand Maester of sorts. And then we have the Hound. I think I can sum up the Hound's survivability in one word. Clegane Bowl. We still haven't had the fight between the Mountain and the Hound yet, and considering how much show watchers have hyped up that possible fight, it would be a little foolish for the showrunners not to deliver on that end. On the other hand, Davos is one character I feel like many expect to die, but I think will live for one reason, and that is in part guilt. We saw in episode 2 how he asked the little girl to go down to the Crypts of Winterfell to protect the other common folk. Well, Having already lost Princess Shireen, I suspect Sir Davos will lose another young girl he was hoping to protect, and so he would be kept alive next episode, for no other reason but to make the viewers sympathize with the sadness he feels at having indirectly condemned a child to death. Also, as the last remaining leader in the series who fought for Stannis Baratheon, if he ends up aiding in the rulership of Westeros, I could see his role as something akin to Master of Ships. Finally, for the last category of characters I don't think will die. Let's start with the obvious. Dany and Jon. It is quite clear that they still have a role to play in later episodes, so, put shortly, the Battle of Winterfell would be a poor and simply bizarre occasion to kill them off, especially considering their characters' build-up thus far. The character I think many people might disagree with me on, however, is Tyrion. Given the melancholy he expressed last episode, it seems like many think that Tyrion is bound to be killed off. The main reason why I disagree, and am hopefully right about, is that I think he is in fact the narrator of the entire story. Tyrion has quite literally been all over the world, from the Wall to King's Landing to the Free Cities and then to Slaver's Bay. Tyrion is the character with the best overall knowledge of everything that occurred in almost all locations. Moreover, his inquiry into Bran's storyline and powers last episode, with the hint that Bran went on to tell Tyrion about his adventures, would lead me to believe that Tyrion will gain some important information about the White Walkers and the Three-Eyed Raven as a whole. My hope is that with some important information from Bran, Tyrion just might be able to work out a way to defeat the Night's King, considering he has been constantly hyped up as an intelligent character in the series. Lastly, I think that he will go on to serve as Hand of the King, or Queen, or whoever ends up ruling Westeros, considering he already has extensive knowledge of the job, having served as Hand to Joffrey, and currently to Dany. The last two characters I think will survive the battle are Sansa and Arya. I really can't put into words why Sansa survives, other than that she will also play a role in Cersei's downfall and the eventual rebuilding of the North, if not Westeros as a whole. Arya, meanwhile, might have less of a role in the endgame, but I can only speak from gut instinct and say that she also might play a role in the end, and is the only person other than Jaime who might kill Cersei Lannister, considering the Queen is the final person on her little list. Anyway, I'm going to end this video here because it is getting a tad lengthy for my taste, and I need to get it up before the Battle of Winterfell episode actually airs. For now, I want to hear what you folks think. Do you agree with my predictions for episode 3 of season 8, or do you disagree? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Next week, I will be back with plenty more videos since I will have the time, so please do like, subscribe, and tune in if you enjoyed, and as always, I will see you all next time.